Welcome to ILTV's Israel Daily. I'm Lauren Izo. Coming up in this edition, say hello to the new normal. Israelis can now go to restaurants, hotels, and even concerts. That is only if they have a green passport. The Pope calls to say hello to Israel's president as he passes through Israeli airspace en route to Iraq. And what's in your profile? New research shows you might get more dates if you're vaccinated. Well, the experiment finally begins. Today's the day Israel opens up a handful of businesses across several sectors, including restaurants and cafes, hotels, stadiums, theaters, and even wedding venues. But there is a catch. Only green passport holders will be allowed to enter most facilities, meaning those who have received both doses of the COVID vaccine. Will it work? Hannah Rifkin reports.
Israel is kicking off its Green Passport pilot program, and the Prime Minister was one of the first to enjoy the fruits of the country's reopening.
Green passport restaurants coming back to life. We still have to watch ourselves. We have to wear masks, keep the distances that people require, but social distance. But we're coming out of it, and there's not much more.
Restaurants are permitted to open, but with specific guidelines. Only Green Pass holders can sit inside with a capacity of 100 people, and up to 100 non-pass holders are permitted for outdoor seating. 2-meter distance is required between each table.
Just have to have a few 100,000 more people, especially 50-year-old jabbed, and we're going through the first phase. We're done. We'll be done. Not yet done, but we'll be done. Now, do you want a bite?
Also, event venues are permitted to open for Green Pass holders with a limit of 300 people. Stadiums are also opening up for those with 10,000 seats. Up to 1,000 people are allowed in a closed space and up to 1,500 in an open space. A concert series already kicked off in Tel Aviv over the weekend, a first performance by Israeli performing artist Ivri Lieder.
זה אושר גדול להיות פה היום איתכם, באמת, אני אומר את זה עם לא הכוונה. וזה כבוד בשבילנו גם להיות ההופעה הראשונה בבלומפילד המחודש, באצטדיון המדהים הזה.
There will no longer be restrictions on Israelis wishing to leave the country, and those entering the country with a green passport are exempt from quarantine. But even though restrictions are being lifted today, some were impatient to return to normalcy. Police still handing out fines over the weekend for illegal gatherings. Police overnight Friday and Saturday broke up an outdoor party in the Negev that was attended by roughly 600 people in violation of the government's health guidelines. But even with the excitement and confusion, Israelis are hopeful that the new Green Passport plan is a step in the right direction.
I'm very excited that things will go back to normal, but let's see how it works. I'm not sure about all the vaccines, and there will be citizens Class A and Class B, the one who was vaccinated and one who were not. So I hope things will get better soon.
Hannah Rifkin, ILTV.
And before we move on, let's take a look at the latest numbers. On Saturday, the health ministry recorded 1,923 new cases with an infection rate of 4.3%. There are 724 Israelis in serious condition, with 210 on ventilators, and the death toll is 5,861. 4.9 million Israelis have received their first COVID vaccine, and 3.7 million have had both doses. Well, as you heard in the last report, live performances can once again be a reality. Tel Aviv kicking off a concert series over the weekend that will host a handful of Israel's biggest names in music. The first concert was at Bloomfield Stadium over the weekend for Green Passport holders only, of course. It is my pleasure to welcome Ivri Lieder to the show. He's a musician and a household name here in Israel. He was also a judge on the first season of the Israeli X Factor. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me.
So, Ivri, how did it feel to be able to, first of all, be the first musician to play in the new Bloomfield Stadium, but also to have a live performance after all this time of not being able to?
Well, it was absolutely amazing, I have to say, the whole thing, because, first of all, playing with my band on a big stage with everything, after such a long time is truly a special experience. And just like going on stage, see all those people, feel the energy, see how happy they are, how happy we are, like the whole thing. It felt like living. Like I told them I have this one song, and I keep saying at the end of the song that the world is beautiful, the world is beautiful, the world is beautiful, like as like a mantra, kind of thing. And suddenly I sang it, and it was like it felt so. It got new meanings, like after such a long time where we couldn't do the most mundane things that we can think about, just live our lives the way we are so used to them. And we've been deprived of all those things, and then suddenly you can do that, you can meet people there and play, and it's insane. And especially and to do it in the stadium, which is so beautiful. And it's got like this, the stadium has an energy which is like super cool. And yeah, we enjoyed it. Like we went off stage really laughing and smiling, and all the band and the crew and everyone.
Right, I'm sure that was a moment that you were waiting for a very long time. I also understand that you wrote a song during lockdown. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, one of the songs I released this year, it's called The Middle East, the Mizrach HaTichon, and it's I wrote it after the first lockdown. After that first experience of being locked down in our houses, not being able to do anything, not being able to do the things we love and are so used to, and it pushed all those emotions and lyrics out of me, so it was very fast and but intense writing that song. And now it's pretty cool singing it, because it's about, I think it will be cool to sing it for a very long time, like for many years, because it will always be about this period of time, about those days, where we couldn't go anywhere.
Right, and as you said, this year obviously has had a huge impact on all of us. Do you think that the last year is going to change people in Israel and people all over the world and their relationship with the arts?
Well, I kind of hope that people will remember how much they missed it and how much it's an important part of our lives, being able to enjoy art in that way and together, and that energy that you can only get in a concert is so unique and it's so special. And I really hope that we'll all remember that, that we will, also the artists, we will remember that we didn't have it. It's so easy to get into your routine of things. Even if we talk about performances, it becomes a routine. You enjoy it, but it's a different feeling, and to just remember how important this is for us. Remember that life is about many things, and this is definitely one of them.
And before we say goodbye, do you think you could give us a hint of what you're working on right now? What can we look forward to?
Oh, wow. I'm working on so many things. The one good thing that happened with Corona is being locked in the studio for so long that I wrote a lot of new songs and a lot of new materials and tons of new projects. So it freed a lot of my time to be creative, and that's a good thing. So there's many things. Like I released a new song, like this classical ballad a month ago. It's called The Empty Moment. And it has a nice video with Agam Rothberg, the actress, and we got to shoot in places that usually you can't shoot because they're really full, like an airport or a hotel. We got a whole big hotel just for us to shoot it, so that's very special. And now really soon I'm gonna release the single together with a few other artists, so that's gonna be out, and it's also kind of relevant to the times. And after that, we have so many other new things, and yeah, it's going to be a busy year.
Awesome. Well, we can't wait to hear all your new music. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today. Talk to you soon. All the best.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Well, not everyone is as excited over today's opening. In fact, many local restaurants are frustrated and confused since the government can change its mind at virtually any moment, and investing resources at such an uncertain time could be risky. Let's find out why from Soli Orma Durbin, owner of the popular Cafe Soho in Tel Aviv. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Of course. So in what capacity are you actually able to open today? Are you welcoming customers to be seated inside the restaurant?
According to the law, we're allowed to, but as you said before, investing resources, hiring more staff that would be needed to go back to table service, especially for the level of service we like to give at the cafe, will be such an enormous endeavor that could then go to waste and cause us to put workers back on chalat, unpaid vacation. And it's really just a mess for paperwork. It's a mess for the feeling in the cafe, for the staff, for the team, for the customers. And we really believe that there will be another lockdown around election time, after elections, of course. And it just feels like we want to wait to open as we were before Corona, properly at the right time. So at the moment, we're doing takeaway and delivery, and there are a couple of tables littered around outside if people want to perch while waiting for something or have a bite of something they've ordered. But we are not going to go back to table service for now. We really feel that it's important to go back to regular service in steps and not just a big boom that could be taken away from us again.
So do you think that the new guidelines that are being put in place today are logical and fair, or do you have suggestions for how the government could have gone about this a little bit better?
It's just not logical to go from one day of no seating at all to completely back to normal, except for space between tables and a capacity limit that anyway works for us at Cafe Soho because we can't seat 100 people here anyway. So as a small local neighborhood coffee shop, we want to do our best to keep people safe and also to continue as we are for now until you don't have to sort of police people and check their passports all the time, and maybe they don't want to. And we're very unsure about what the future holds, but we know that the takeaway and delivery has been working and people can safely enjoy our products and we can still see their faces at the counter with masks on. And for us, this is working at the moment. It doesn't feel safe enough to open regular service. I think the government is just getting ahead of itself because it wants to kickstart the economy. But it will end up backfiring because I'm sure that the infection rate will go up again and there'll be another seger and then people will have to go back to how they were. It's just like a repeat of what's been happening the last year. And we're tired of it, and we're tired of the government allowing it to happen again, essentially. So why don't we do this right? Why don't we wait? Why don't we wait for everyone to be vaccinated? Why don't we just wait a few months? You know, that's how I feel anyway.
So I understand how you're operating now is working for you in some capacity, but how much less are you actually making doing only takeaway and delivery versus in-house dining?
It's an interesting thing to look at because for in-house dining, obviously the labor increases dramatically because we have to have a lot more servers, more bartenders. Everything is much more complicated. You need dishwashers and everything. And on the other hand, with things like delivery, Walt, of course, takes its infamous percentage. But we have found that we are keeping our heads above water at the cafe. We have a nice demand for our goods, mainly our bagels that we've been making for many years. We have an amazing customer base that we've built over the last 11 years of our existence. And we would love, love, love to go back to table service. But until it's the right time and it's safe, we're not going to add costs onto us of hiring people, like I said. It's time, it's investment of time, of money, of everything, and it simply doesn't make sense. Of course, our revenue is less without table service, but as long as the costs are not exponentially higher, which they're not, because we have a very small team at the moment, we prefer to stay like this. Zoho had a staff of 35 people before Corona, and now we are about 16, and we still manage to be very busy every day. So for now, this is how we stay.
Well, it sounds like you're doing okay for now, and I hope you can return to some level of normalcy on some level sometime soon. Thank you so much for joining us today, and best of luck.
Thank you.
Well, as the world watches Israel return to normalcy, some are looking to follow the same path. Israel's prime minister announcing over the weekend that Israel, Austria, and Denmark will establish a joint fund for research and development of COVID-19 vaccines. Netanyahu holding a press conference with Austria's chancellor and Denmark's prime minister at his side during a visit over the weekend. Take a look.
I think this is great news, and I think it reflects the respect we have for each other and the belief, the confidence that we have in working together to protect the health of our peoples.
We have agreed today to bring our knowledge together in a kind of a collective effort to secure better and also more reliable access to vaccines. Therefore, as we have already said, we will bolster our research and development cooperation.
I would like to thank you, Bibi, and you, Mette, for this cooperation, because I think that it is important to work together in order not only to fight the virus now, but also to fight the mutations in the next years.
Meanwhile, Israel had another special guest over the weekend, this time not on the ground, but in the sky. Pope Francis sent a message to Israel's President Rivlin as he crossed over Israel en route to Baghdad from Rome on his 4-day historic visit to the country, the first visit by a pontiff to Iraq.
To His Excellency Reverend Rivlin, President of the State of Israel, entering Israeli airspace on my apostolic journey to Iraq, I send warm greetings to you and the people of the nation, praying that Almighty God will bless all with His gift of harmony and peace. Franciscus, Papa.
Well, Israelis will head to the polls in just a couple of weeks. Running in Israel's fourth election in 2 years, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is clutching onto a world-leading COVID-19 vaccination rollout like a political lifesaver. More in the next report.
In speeches, social media posts, and a string of interviews with the local media, Israel's longest-serving leader has been highlighting his role in having swiftly secured sufficient doses to vaccinate the country's adult population. But with opinion polls showing, yet again, an election with no clear winner, and with challengers from the right threatening to draw votes from traditional Netanyahu supporters, it's unclear whether the strategy will work. Opponents have accused Netanyahu of mismanaging the response to the pandemic, pointing to what they say were premature and politically motivated exits from several national lockdowns, which led to spikes in infection rates and some 6,000 dead. Israeli voters have been feeling the economic strain as well. The most recent official figures showed unemployment greatly deepened by the health crisis at 18% in January. As for Netanyahu's legal woes, he is on trial for alleged corruption, which he denies. Political commentators say voters long ago factored in the charges during inconclusive elections in April and in September 2019, as well as March last year.
I think it's time for change in Israel, and we need someone new, despite the great job he did with the vaccinations. But we should be grateful for what he did.
More than half the Israeli population have been given a first dose of the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine, and about 38% 2 shots. And Netanyahu says Israel aims to reopen its economy by April 5th. With the March 23rd ballot approaching, Netanyahu has shifted gears to the future, saying his proven leadership would ensure additional vaccine supplies. He said some 36 million more doses might be needed for boosters against virus variants. But on a popular morning drive time show on Israel's Khan public radio this week, Netanyahu's familiar soundbite drew only exasperation.
עוד פעם חיסונים, די.
Chana Rifkin, ILTV.
Well, online dating app OkCupid has revealed data showing how the dating world has responded to the global pandemic. It isn't just your job or height anymore that is attracting the attention of potential dates. Now your willingness to get vaccinated also increases your chances of people matching or swiping right. In the last few months, there has been a 137% increase in the mention of vaccine among those who are seeking a real-life companion. Let's speak to James Spiro, a reporter for CTech. He joins us now. Thank you, James, for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
So James, how has COVID changed online dating platforms? Give us some of the most interesting statistics that you found when doing this research.
Yeah, of course. So online dating has been completely transformed by COVID. Of course, everyone was stuck at home for almost a year. No one could really go out, and so a lot of dating transferred to regular phone calls and conversations and instant messaging. Now, in terms of COVID itself and the vaccines, OkCupid saw a 137% increase in those talking about vaccines. Now, OkCupid is fascinating because it takes so much data from its users. It asks really personal questions, usually about religion or politics or general food interests, and that's how it matches its partners. And so it makes sense that that OkCupid would ask a vaccination question. And so what we saw is that you're 13% more likely to get a match if you answer that you're going to get vaccinated or that you express an interest in getting vaccinated.
It seems a bit personal. I have to ask, do all dating apps ask these sorts of personal questions to their customers?
So as far as I understand, OkCupid asks the most amount of questions to get as much information as possible. Other apps like Tinder or Hinge usually just rely on things like location services, and then users can write their own bios. So OkCupid is fascinating because it really dives deep. And a few years ago, one of the co-founders, Christian Rudder, published a book on all of these findings. And I think it's probably time for an update. We found that in Generation Z and the millennials, they'd actually cancel a real life first date if the person they matched with didn't want to get a vaccination. So already kind of social mores are changing and etiquettes are changing with these times.
So I guess we can imagine from now on, it might not be so crazy to hear about these kinds of things, and it might be across perhaps all dating apps. They ask you if you're vaccinated, if you have COVID, things like that.
Yeah, it seems like, I hate the expression the new normal, but I really think it is part of it. I mean, when you're meeting people now for the first time, whether it's virtual or in real life, it'll just be part and parcel of dating.
And has dating gone up in general? I mean, we've all been in lockdown for over a year now. I assume people are chatting online way more than they used to.
Yeah, I think so. I think there's been kind of just people craving to speak to people outside of their immediate bubbles in their homes. Dating generally, it seems it depends where you are and in what country you're in, but certainly in Israel, first dates have changed from kind of meeting up at a bar to walking along the beach or kind of sitting in a park. Israel's blessed with quite good weather for most of the year, so it's kind of comfortable to be able to sit on a bench somewhere. I think those in colder climates, especially in my kind of hometown in London, I don't think they're so lucky.
So all those online daters who are vaccinated, go now and put it in your profile, because you might just get a lot more dates because of that, right?
Absolutely. It's you should put it front and center, right in your bio. You'll get 13% more likes, and maybe your future partner.
You heard it here first. James Spiro, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, on that note, let's take a look at the weather forecast with Chana Rifkin.
Hey there, Lauren. Beginning with tonight, lows calling for about 49 degrees Fahrenheit or 9 degrees Celsius. Then moving on to tomorrow, highs are expecting to reach about 68 degrees Fahrenheit or 20 degrees Celsius. There will be some rainy weather in the north tomorrow and partly cloudy to clear skies throughout the rest of the country. Back to the studio now.
Thanks as always, Chana. And now, just before we go, let's take a look at what's going viral in Israel. All right, I'm sure most of our viewers are familiar with the song Havana, but this is one Israeli woman's take on Havana called Ra'anana. All right, that's it for today's news. Today's exchange rate is 3.33 shekels to the American dollar and 2.63 shekels to the Canadian dollar. For more news from ILTV, please like ILTV on Facebook, follow us on Instagram, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Don't forget to visit the all-new and improved ILTV website at iltv.tv and subscribe to our newsletter for the latest updates while you're there. I'm Lauren Izzo. Thank you for watching.